The diplomatic shuttle envoy emerged from FTL on the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, its hull still glowing from the transition. Inside, Admiral Helena Reyes adjusted her dress uniform one final time before addressing her team. "This is humanity's moment," she said, her voice steady despite the anxiety churning in her stomach. "First contact with the Galactic Concord. Let's make Earth proud." The 12 diplomats and 6 security personnel nodded with appropriate gravity. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 3 years prior, and the invitation to meet with representatives of the Galactic Concord had come as a surprise, a validation that mankind was ready to join the interstellar community. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, head of security, checked his sidearm for the 3rd time. "Rules of engagement, Admiral. Ceremonial weapons only," Reyes replied. "We're guests here. The Concord has maintained peace for over 2,000 years among 57 species. We follow their protocols." The envoy approached the massive space station, a gleaming ring structure that dwarfed any human construction. Its surface rippled with lights and movement, various alien vessels docking and departing in perfect coordination. "Admiral," the comms officer called out, her voice tight. "We're picking up energy signatures consistent with weapons fire near the station." Reyes moved to the viewport. In the distance, flashes of light erupted against the blackness of space. "Magnify." The image resolved to show 2 distinct fleets engaged in combat. The larger vessels bristled with crystalline structures that pulsed with blue energy, firing lances of light that sheared through the smaller, organic-looking ships opposing them. "Identify," Reyes ordered. "Unknown, Ma'am." Neither match any of the profiles in the Concord's welcome package. A flash of light bloomed silently as one of the organic vessels ruptured, spilling debris, and Reyes realized with horror, bodies into space. "Incoming transmission," the comms officer announced. "Text only, universal translator engage." The message appeared on the main screen. "Human vessel maintain position. Concord station compromised. Vraxian forces have violated neutrality accord." "Who sent that?" Reyes demanded. "Signature indicates Meridian Coalition, Ma'am. They're the ones in the smaller ships." Before Reyes could respond, a blinding light flared as something massive dropped out of FTL directly ahead. A vessel so large it seemed impossible. Its hull was midnight black, absorbing rather than reflecting light, angular and predatory with weapons ports that glowed an angry red. "Vraxian dreadnought," whispered the science officer, checking his readings. "At least 2 kilometers long. Its mass displacement field is off the charts." A new message flashed. "Primitive vessel identified as Earth origin. Maintain position for boarding and cataloging. Interference in Vraxian imperial matters will result in immediate species reclassification." "Reclassification?" Jackson asked. "I don't think we want to find out," Reyes said grimly. "Helm, back us off. Nice and easy. No sudden moves." The envoy began a gentle retreat, but 3 smaller Vraxian vessels detached from the dreadnought, moving to intercept. "Ma'am, we've got another transmission. This one's from a Meridian vessel." The comms officer's eyes widened. They're begging for assistance. They say they have civilians aboard." Reyes saw several of the organic Meridian ships fleeing toward the system's outer planets, pursued by Vraxian fighters that methodically picked them apart. One explosion after another, silent in the vacuum, but each representing hundreds, perhaps thousands of lives. "We can't just watch this happen," said Dr. Patel, the mission's chief diplomat. The Concord invitation said this was a peacekeeping organization. Apparently someone didn't get the memo, Jackson muttered. A Meridian ship, trailing plasma and debris, limped toward the envoy. Scans showed its life support failing, hull integrity at critical levels. Reyes made her decision. "Bring us alongside. Prepare for emergency evacuation and medical response." "Admiral," Jackson warned, "the Vraxians specifically ordered." "I know what they ordered, Commander," Reyes cut him off. "But but I'm not going to float here and watch a genocide. Not in humanity's name. As the envoy maneuvered toward the damaged Meridian vessel, the nearest Vraxian cruiser adjusted course to intercept. A warning shot, a beam of coherent energy, sliced through space less than 100 meters from the human shuttle's bow. "They're targeting our engines," the tactical officer reported, voice remarkably calm. "We have 10 seconds before they're in optimal firing range." 6 months after the Proxima Centauri massacre, Admiral Helena Reyes stood before Earth's Security Council in the underground chamber beneath Geneva. Her uniform hung loose on her frame. She'd lost 15 pounds since the nightmares began. "They're coming," she said, her voice echoing in the silent chamber. "Not immediately, but they're coming." The Secretary General leaned forward. "Admiral, your medical evaluation suggests you're suffering from post-traumatic stress and possibly neurological complications from your interaction with the Meridian diplomat." Rice fought to keep her composure, since the dying Meridian had forced a telepathic connection, transferring crucial military intelligence directly into her mind before expiring. She'd been plagued by migraines and flashes of alien memories. Sometimes she would wake up speaking in a language no human had ever heard before. "With respect, Madam Secretary, the Vraxians have already taken 237 humans from the Ganymede mining colony. We recovered this footage yesterday." The holographic display activated, showing grainy images of armored figures moving through low-gravity corridors. The security camera captured the moment when something that resembled a praying mantis the size of a horse casually impaled a fleeing miner with a chitinous limb. "Vraxian shock troops," Rice explained. "They're collecting specimens." "For what purpose?" asked the Chinese representative. "The Meridian memories suggest slave labor. The Vraxians consider us primitives, barely worth classifying as sentient. In their hierarchy, we're just above animals." The Russian Federation delegate scoffed. "So you propose we declare war on an interstellar empire thousands of years more advanced than us, based on memories implanted by a dying alien?" Reyes' fist came down hard on the table. "I propose we refuse to be cataloged, hunted, and enslaved." She took a breath, steadying herself. "Project Thunderchild is ready. We've incorporated everything we could salvage from the Meridian vessel." The hologram shifted to show a massive structure taking shape in the asteroid belt, hidden from Earth observation by the bulk of Ceres. The colony ship Aurora was nearly unrecognizable, its hull reinforced with an exoskeleton of new armor plating. Construction drones swarmed around weapon mounts that dwarfed anything in Earth's arsenal. "The TSS Nemesis," Rice said. "Humanity's first warship. It looks like a coffin," the European Union representative observed. "For our enemies, it will be," came a new voice. Captain Marcus Chen entered the chamber. At 38 he was young for his rank, but the haunted look in his eyes spoke of experiences beyond his years. The scar that ran from his left temple to jaw twitched as he approached the table. "Captain Chen has volunteered to command the Nemesis," Rice explained. "Your file says you were stationed on Europa when it happened," the Secretary General noted. Chen's expression hardened. "My wife and daughters were visiting my parents on Ganymede when the Vraxians came. They're among the missing." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. "The Nemesis incorporates technologies the Vraxians won't expect," Chen continued, gesturing to the hologram. "Our primary weapon system uses kinetic projectiles accelerated to near-light speed. The Meridian's data suggests Vraxian shields are optimized against energy weapons, not physical impacts." "And the crew?" asked the Brazilian representative. "That's where we've had to be. Creative," Rice replied. "The Nemesis is designed to execute maneuvers that would kill a conventional crew. The G-forces alone would turn human organs to jelly." The hologram shifted again, showing a chamber filled with translucent pods. Inside each, a human figure floated in clear fluid, connected to the ship through neural interfaces threaded directly into their skulls. "Immersion suspension," Chen explained. The crew operates while suspended in oxygenated fluid that allows their bodies to withstand up to 30 Gs. The neural interfaces bypass traditional control systems, letting the crew feel the ship as an extension of their own bodies. "My God," whispered the Secretary General. "This is barbaric." The Vraxians and Meridians evolved in environments with lower gravity than Earth, Rise explained. They built their ships accordingly. Neither species can physically withstand the maneuvers the Nemesis is capable of. "That's our advantage." "And the volunteers?" asked the EU representative. "They understand the risks." Chen's scared face twisted in a grim smile. "Every crew member has lost someone. We understand perfectly." The Meridian vessel plummeted through Earth's atmosphere like a wounded bird, trailing plasma and debris across the night sky. Emergency response teams converged on the projected impact zone in the Central Pacific as the ship's failing gravitic systems finally gave out. It hit the water at just under terminal velocity, sending a plume of steam and spray a kilometer into the air. Admiral Rise watched from the deck of the UNSV Sentinel as divers and autonomous drones swarmed the half-submerged alien craft. "Life signs?" she asked. "Thousands," replied the technician manning the scanner. "But their biology is, they're not doing well in our atmosphere. Their oxygen requirements are higher than ours." Reyes grabbed a rebreather mask. "Get me a shuttle to the wreck. Now." 20 minutes later, she stood in the flooded command deck of the Meridian ship. The architecture was all curves and organic shapes, like standing inside a massive seashell. The ship's inhabitants moved with graceful, elongated limbs, their iridescent skin shimmering under the emergency lights. Many lay gasping on the floor as human medical teams administered oxygen-enriched mixtures. A slender figure approached Rise, its movements deliberate and regal despite obvious injury. Unlike the others, whose skin tones ranged from pearl to light blue, this Meridian's epidermis had a distinct lavender hue. Delicate patterns, almost like circuitry, traced across exposed portions of its flesh. "You are the one," the Meridian said, its voice harmonizing into multiple tones simultaneously. "The one who carries my mother's memories." Reyes felt a sudden pressure behind her eyes, followed by a stabbing pain in her temples. Images flashed through her mind. A crystal palace, armored figures dragging screaming civilians, a female Meridian in elaborate armor fighting to her last breath. "T. Talisren," Reyes stammered, the name pulled from somewhere deep in her implanted memories. The Meridian's large, faceted eyes widened. "You know me. Then it is true." No, she bowed her head. "I am Talisren, here regent of the Meridian Collective. And you are humanity's warrior diplomat. Admiral Helena Reyes, Earth Defense Force. Your people need medical attention. Yes, we fled the fall of Cordius Prime. My mother, the memory giver, she was Varshen, war strategist of the Collective." Talis gestured to the thousands of Meridians being treated. "These are all that remain of our government. The rest are scattered or dead." Before Reyes could respond, her comm unit buzzed. "Admiral, priority transmission from UNSC headquarters. Vraxian vessels have entered the system. They're demanding we surrender all Meridian refugees." Talis's slender fingers gripped Reyes's arm with surprising strength. "If you surrender us, Admiral, you doom not only my people but yours. War Prince Thraz leads this fleet. He collects the skulls of those who oppose him, one from each species." Reyes's implanted memories flared again, showing her a massive chamber filled with thousands of skulls displayed on obsidian pedestals. At the center, a towering figure in Baroque armor caressed a polished skull that still bore the remnants of Meridian skin patterns. "Tell UNSC we're not surrendering anyone," Reyes said into her comm, "and inform Captain Chen the timetable has accelerated." As if on cue, every electronic device on Earth capable of receiving transmissions activated simultaneously. The image that appeared made even the stoic Meridians gasp. A Vraxian in ceremonial armor, its insectoid features clicking mandibles in what might have been amusement. Primitives of Earth, the translation overlay rendered in multiple languages. I am Warprinskthras, subjugator of 17 systems, collector of species. You harbor fugitives belonging to the Meridian Collective, enemies of the Vraxian Empire. Surrender them within one planetary rotation, or face classification as a hostile species. The transmission shifted to display footage of a planet, blue and green like Earth, as Vraxian warships systematically reduced cities to molten craters. The screams needed no translation. This is Boreas IV, Therese continued. They also refused our reasonable demands. Rise looked at Talus, whose large eyes had narrowed to slits. He's coming for your world, Admiral, the Meridian said softly. With or without us. Then it's time we showed him what primitives are capable of, Rise replied, activating her secure channel. This is Admiral Rise. Authorization Thunderchild Actual. Deploy the Nemesis. The Vraxian pacification fleet emerged from FTL in perfect formation. 53 warships arranged in a three-dimensional battle lattice, with Warprinskthras' flagship, the inevitable Dominion, at its center. Each vessel bristled with weapons capable of reducing continents to ash. Their sensor arrays swept Earth's orbital defenses, primitive satellites, and a handful of small military platforms, and found nothing worthy of concern. Pitiful. Therese clicked to his command staff. These creatures barely qualify as a technological species. His second-in-command gestured to the display showing Earth's major population centers. Shall we begin the demonstration culling, Warprince? Perhaps one of their smaller landmasses. Australia, Therese decided, mandibles spreading in what passed for a smile among his kind. Remote enough to make a point without spoiling the primary harvesting zones. Before the order could be executed, a junior sensor officer chittered urgently. Anomaly detected. Warprince. Energy signature behind this system's moon. Therese swiveled his eye stalks toward the display. Magnify. The image resolved to show a vessel emerging from lunar shadow. By Vraxian standards, it was unremarkable in size, perhaps a fifth the length of the Dominion. But its design was unlike anything in their extensive catalog of known spacecraft. Where Vraxian ships were angular and Meridian vessels organic, this craft was a brutal hybrid, sleek in some places, bulky in others, with massive barrel-like protrusions along its flanks. Classification, Therese demanded. Unknown, Warprince. Hull composition appears to be multiple materials layered in a pattern our sensors cannot penetrate. Energy readings are inconsistent with known propulsion systems. Therese's mandibles clicked in mild amusement. So the primitives have built themselves a warship. How quaint. Disable it, but preserve the hull for study. 3 Vraxian cruisers broke formation, moving to intercept the lone human vessel. Energy weapons charge, their targeting systems locking onto the approaching ship. Inside the TSS Nemesis, Captain Marcus Chen floated in his immersion pod, the oxygenated fluid filling his lungs with each breath. Through his neural interface, he felt the ship as an extension of his own body. Every system, every weapon, every crew member linked directly to his consciousness. All stations report, he subvocalized, the words transmitting through the fluid to the ship's comm system. Weapons hot, came the reply from Lieutenant Park, her consciousness merged with the railgun systems. Engineering at 110%, reported Commander Okafor, directly interfaced with the experimental fusion drives. She's eager, Captain. Chen focused his attention on the tactical display overlaid across his visual cortex. The 3 Vraxian cruisers approaching in standard attack formation, exactly as the Meridian tactical data had predicted. Predictable. Arrogant. Broadcast on all frequencies, Chen ordered. Let's give them one chance. His executive officer, Commander Rivera, handled the transmission. Vraxian vessels, this is the Earth Defense Force vessel Nemesis. Your presence in this system is unwelcome. Withdraw immediately. The response came swiftly. a blast of energy that passed within meters of the Nemesis' bow. A warning shot. "I believe that's their answer, sir," Rivera observed dryly. Chen's scared face would have smiled if not submerged. "Then let's introduce ourselves properly. Helm, execute Sierra maneuver." Without hesitation, the Nemesis performed what any rational species would consider suicide. It dove directly toward Earth's atmosphere at maximum acceleration. The G-forces would have liquefied any crew not suspended in immersion fluid. Even so, Chen felt his consciousness blur at the edges as his body strained against forces it was never designed to endure. The Vraxian cruisers, unable to match the maneuver, spread out to calculate the human ship's emerging trajectory. "They expect us to use the atmosphere to bleed off velocity and emerge on a predictable course," Chen noted. "Navigation. Maintain full power through the thermosphere. Take us straight through." "Sir, hull temperature approaching critical," warned the engineering officer as atmospheric friction turned the ship's outer layers incandescent. "Understood. All power to forward shields and ventral plating." The Nemesis plunged deeper, a meteor streaking across the skies of North America, visible to millions of upturned faces. In space, the Vraxian vessels lost track of their target amid the atmospheric interference. War Prince Thraz, watching from the Dominion, felt the first twinge of uncertainty. Where did they go? His answer came moments later as the Nemesis erupted from the atmosphere directly beneath his fleet's formation, ascending at a velocity no Vraxian vessel could achieve in atmosphere, its primary weapons trained on the underside of the Dominion. The one direction not covered by the Vraxian battle lattice's interlocking defensive fields. "All railguns, fire," ordered Captain Chen, his voice deadly calm as the Nemesis unleashed humanity's reply. The Nemesis railguns fired in perfect synchronization. 6 tungsten rods, each 3 meters long and weighing nearly a ton, accelerated to 70% of light speed in microseconds. The kinetic energy released upon impact was equivalent to tactical nuclear weapons. War Prince Thraz had just enough time to feel something alien. Fear, before 5 of the 6 projectiles struck the underside of the inevitable Dominion. The massive Vraxian flagship shuddered as the rounds punched through its ventral armor like tissue paper, energy shields designed to deflect plasma weapons offering no resistance against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Secondary explosions blossomed along the vessel's length as internal systems catastrophically failed. "Damage report," Thraz shrieked, picking himself up from the deck where the impact had thrown him. "Critical systems failing." War Prince, his second reported, green ichor leaking from a gash in his carapace. Engine decks 3 through 17 destroyed. Weapons grid offline. The primitive vessel targeted our primary power conduits with precision. On the tactical display, Thraz watched the human ship already executing another impossible maneuver, rolling and diving away from the retaliatory fire of his supporting vessels. "How are they moving like that?" he demanded. "Nothing can withstand those G-forces." His science officer, struggling to interpret the readings, chittered in disbelief. "Their biology. They're using liquid suspension and neural interfaces. The crew is swimming inside the ship." Thraz's mandibles clicked in disgust. Barbaric. Across the fleet, Vraxian commanders reacted to this stunning development with increasing desperation. The human vessel moved in patterns no simulation could predict, executing turns and accelerations that would kill any Vraxian crew instantly. 3 more cruisers fell to precision railgun strikes before the fleet could even coordinate a response. Inside the Nemesis, Captain Chen felt rather than saw another successful hit as his consciousness remained merged with the ship's systems. The neural interface translated the impact into a sensation of satisfaction, a predator's teeth sinking into prey. "Damage report," he subvocalized. "Minor hull breaches on decks 2 and 5, Rivera reported. "Auto-repair systems engage. Railguns 2 and 5 require cooldown cycle." Chen directed his awareness to the tactical display. The Vraxian fleet was breaking formation, individual captains reacting differently to the unprecedented threat. Some fled to higher orbit, while others attempted to form defensive clusters. "They're panicking," Chen observed. "Target their command and control vessels next." Lieutenant Park, still merged with the weapons systems, acknowledged the order with a pulse of affirmation through the neural net. The Nemesis banked sharply, accelerating toward a cluster of Vraxian communication vessels. Suddenly, warning indicators flared across Chen's consciousness. "New contact," called out the sensor officer. Massive energy signature from the Vraxian flagship. Through the neural link, Chen witnessed the inevitable Dominion venting plasma and debris, but at its core, something was powering up. Something that made the ship's radiation sensors spike into the red. "All power to engines," Chen ordered. "Maximum distance, now." The Nemesis reversed course, straining against physics as it accelerated away from the damaged flagship. Inside their pods, the crew felt the crushing pressure even through the emergent fluid. Warship stood before the Singularity device, its obsidian casing pulsing with energy that bent light around it. The ship's evacuation alarms wailed in the background. "The authorization codes, Warship," prompted his weapons officer. "The device requires your genetic signature." Thraz pressed his primary manipulator against the scanner. The Singularity weapon, forbidden by even the loose ethical standards of the Vraxian Empire, hummed as it recognized his authority. "Target," the interface queried. "This system's star," Thraz hissed. "If I cannot have this world, no one shall." As the device powered up, Thraz retreated toward his personal shuttle. Let the lesser crews perish. The Empire would rebuild its fleet. But these humans, they would be erased from existence. Throughout the solar system and beyond, communication relays picked up an unexpected transmission. The signal, broadcast on all frequencies in thousands of languages, originated from the human vessel. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Nemesis to all civilized species. We did not seek this conflict, but we will defend ourselves. The Vraxian Empire thought us primitive, thought us prey. They were mistaken. To those suffering under Vraxian oppression, Earth stands with you. To those profiting from Vraxian atrocities, Earth stands against you. Remember this day. Remember what a single human ship accomplished against their fleet." The transmission included full sensor data from the battle. Unedited footage showing the Nemesis systematically dismantling ships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. On thousands of worlds, beings gathered around communication terminals, watching in stunned silence as the unthinkable unfolded. On the edges of known space, oppressed species whispered a new word: human. And in Earth orbit, the Nemesis prepared to confront a weapon that could extinguish their sun. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, Captain Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Nemesis II, watching as technicians integrated Meridian sensor arrays into the human-designed hull. Below, on the asteroid base that had once been humanity's secret shipyard, 3 more vessels took shape, each incorporating lessons learned from the first desperate engagement. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" Admiral Rice said, joining him at the viewport. She looked healthier than she had in months, the constant pain from her telepathic connection, finally managed with Meridian medical techniques. "I never thought I'd see Meridians and humans working side by side," Chen replied. "Or Parvosi, Tekken, and whatever those floating jellyfish things are." "Corellian gas forms," Rice supplied. "Former slaves of the Vraxian Empire. They're apparently brilliant mathematicians." The aftermath of the Singularity weapon's destruction had been chaotic. The Nemesis, critically damaged from its desperate bid to intercept and redirect the device into the Vraxian flagship, had barely limped back to Earth. War Prince Thraz was presumed dead. His mighty flagship collapsed into a short-lived micro-black hole. The surviving Vraxian vessels had retreated in disarray, but everyone knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The Vraxian Emperor has dispatched Grand Admiral Xorvex with the 7th Imperial Fleet, Rice said, handing Chen a data tablet. 217 warships, including 3 dreadnoughts. They'll reach Alpha Centauri within 2 weeks. Chen studied the intelligence report, compiled from data provided by a dozen formerly neutral species now seeking alliance with Earth. Sorvex, the Meridian Memories. He's their most decorated commander. Never lost a campaign in 3 centuries of service. Unlike Thraz, he's methodical, patient. Rise gestured to the shipyard. That's why we need the fleet operational immediately. Chen nodded grimly. 4 ships against over 200. Still better odds than last time. A soft chime announced another arrival. Talisarin glided onto the observation deck, her movements more fluid in the lower gravity. The Meridian Regent wore a modified envirosuit that regulated her oxygen intake in Earth-normal atmosphere. Captain. Admiral. Her voice still carried that strange harmonizing quality. The Council of Allies has reached a decision. They'd voted unanimously to formalize the Terran Accord. Rise raised an eyebrow. That was faster than expected. Your demonstration of force against the Vraxians was compelling, Talis replied. But more importantly, your demonstration of mercy. Chen knew what she meant. In the battle's aftermath, the Nemesis had rescued Vraxian survivors, provided medical care, and eventually returned them to their empire with a message. Humanity would defend itself, but did not seek the annihilation of its enemies. 26 species have signed the accord, Talis continued, each contributing technologies, resources, and personnel to the joint fleet. The Parvosi have adapted their shield technology to your hull designs. My people have integrated our sensory systems with your neural interfaces. The Corellians have improved your navigation systems beyond anything the Vraxians can predict. And in return, Chen asked, knowing there was always a price. Talis's large eyes fixed on him. Leadership. Grand Admiral Sorvex comes with the most powerful fleet assembled in 5 millennia. None of our species have prevailed against the Vraxians alone. But humans, she gestured to the ships under construction. You fight differently. You think differently. You are willing to embrace strategies that our cultures abandoned as too risky, too unorthodox. Rais smiled thinly. You mean we're crazy enough to attempt what rational species wouldn't consider? Precisely, Talis agreed without hesitation. The Council has voted to offer you overall command of the Allied fleet, Captain Chen. All 26 species will place their vessels under your authority. Chen turned back to the viewport, watching as a tech and engineering team installed what appeared to be modified human railgun technology on a Meridian vessel. The hybrid ship looked strange, ugly even, but the combination of technologies would give it capabilities no single species vessel could match. Sorvex expects to face desperate, outmatched primitives, Chen said quietly. Instead, he'll face the combined innovation of 27 species, each contributing their strengths. The Vraxian Empire has never lost a war, Talis noted. Chen's scared face formed a grim smile. Neither has humanity. Fleet status, Captain Chen demanded. His consciousness spread across the neural network that linked the 37 vessels of the Allied battle group. Through the immersion fluid in his command pod, he felt rather than heard the responses of a dozen different species commanders. The Meridian cruisers reported green status, their organic hulls reinforced with human-designed armor plating. The Parvosi destroyers, small but deadly, pulsed confirmation of their readiness. The 4 human vessels, Nemesis II, Retribution, Defiance, and Judgment, formed the core of the formation, their hybrid technologies setting the standard for the fleet. Grand Admiral Sorvex's fleet has exited FTL at the edge of the Elysium system, reported Commander Rivera, her consciousness merging with the fleet's sensor grid. 209 vessels in classic Vraxian assault formation. Chen directed his awareness to the tactical display. The Vraxian fleet was impressive. A wall of destructive power arrayed against the much smaller Allied force. But unlike Thraz, Sorvex had deployed scouts and established a defensive perimeter. This would not be a repeat of Earth's easy victory. All vessels, maintain position in the asteroid field. Chen ordered. Hold for my command. The Allied fleet had arrived at Elysium 3 days earlier, the site of the largest Meridian colony outside their home system. 2 billion civilians populated the terraformed world, which now lay directly in the path of the Vraxian advance. Evacuating even a fraction of the population had proven impossible on such short notice. Incoming transmission, announced the communications officer. The Vraxians are broadcasting on all frequencies. The image that resolved in Chen's neural interface showed a Vraxian unlike any he had seen before. Where Thraz had been adorned with Baroque armor and trophies, Sorvex was austere, his carapace bearing only the simple markings of rank and campaign ribbons earned over centuries of service. Allied vessels. The Grand Admiral's translated voice was calm, almost respectful. This is Grand Admiral Sorvex of the Vraxian Empire. The rogue actions of War Prince Thraz were not sanctioned by the Emperor. I am authorized to offer terms. Chen gestured for the transmission to continue. The human species has demonstrated unexpected capability. Sorvex continued. The Emperor offers a place within the Empire as a protected client state. Your military innovations would be valuable to imperial interests. In exchange, your homeworld will be spared the fate of those who oppose imperial will. And the Meridians? Chen asked. The other species in our alliance. Sorvex's mandibles clicked once. Their status remains unchanged. The Meridian Collective has been designated for extinction. The lesser species will be processed according to their utility. Chen terminated the connection with a thought. All commanders, prepare for engagement plan Thermopylae. Through the fleet neural network, he sensed hesitation from some of the alien vessels. The plan they had developed was considered suicidal by most strategic doctrines. They outnumber us 5-1, came the thought voice of the Parvosi commander. Perhaps we should consider their terms. The Vraxians never honor terms. Talisran replied, her consciousness sharp and clear through the enhanced telepathic interfaces the Meridians had contributed. They offer peace only to separate their enemies. Besides, Chen added, we're not as outnumbered as they think. At his command, the sensor grid revealed what the Allied fleet had spent 3 days preparing. The asteroid field surrounding Elysium had been seeded with thousands of stealth mines and automated weapon platforms, each incorporating technology from different Allied species to confuse Vraxian sensors. The Grand Admiral expects us to either retreat or launch a frontal assault, Chen explained. Instead, we're going to draw them into the killing field, then attack from multiple vectors simultaneously. Each task force will target a specific class of Vraxian vessel, focusing fire to exploit the weaknesses identified in our combined intelligence. Through the neural link, he shared tactical assignments with each commander, the complex battle plan unfolding in their shared consciousness without need for words. The Vraxians have been the galaxy's apex predator for millennia, Chen concluded. They've evolved highly specialized tactics that have overwhelmed all opposition. But specialization creates blind spots, and when faced with something completely outside their experience, specialists falter. The Grand Admiral's fleet began to advance, exactly as predicted. All vessels, prepare to execute on my mark, Chen ordered. Let's show them what adaptive predators can do. The Grand Hall of the newly constructed Galactic Assembly on Earth fell silent as Captain Marcus Chen walked slowly to the podium. His dress uniform hung loosely on his frame. He had lost 20 pounds during his 3-month recovery. The scarring on his face had been joined by fresh marks. A cybernetic left eye that glowed faintly blue, and a prosthetic right arm that hummed almost imperceptibly as he moved. Representatives from 37 species rose in respect as he approached. Even the Vraxian delegation, 3 mid-level bureaucrats sent to negotiate their empire's surrender terms, stood, mandibles clicking nervously. 1 year ago, Chen began, his voice carrying through the vast chamber. Humanity stood alone against what we thought was the greatest threat we had ever faced. We were wrong. Holographic displays activated around the hall, showing the final battle for the Vraxian throne world. The images were still raw and painful. The Allied fleet, reduced to 11 vessels by the time they reached Corthalum, fighting through 3 defensive rings and 1,000 warships. The cost was beyond calculation. Chen continued. Billions lost across a dozen worlds. Entire species brought to the edge of extinction. The Vraxian strategy of targeting civilian populations with planet killers revealed the true face of an empire that had terrorized this galaxy for 5 millennia. The holographic display shifted to show the moment that had become iconic across the galaxy. Chen, half his body burned from a Vraxian energy weapon, standing over the fallen emperor in the Imperial throne room, a human combat knife in his remaining hand. But in our darkest hour, we discovered something unexpected. Chen gestured to the assembled delegates, not just allies, but a fundamental truth. Diversity creates strength. Every species here contributed something unique to our victory. Technologies, tactics, perspectives that no single civilization could have developed alone. Admiral Reyes, seated in the front row beside Talisren, nodded in approval. The neural link they had established during the final battle had spread to include commanders from a dozen species, creating a group consciousness that had coordinated the final assault with impossible precision. Today, we formalized the alliance that was forged in battle, Chen said, nodding to the document displayed before each delegate. The Galactic Concordat establishes not an empire, not a hierarchy, but a true partnership of equals. No single species will dominate. No single world will dictate policy. The Vraxian representatives shifted uncomfortably. Their once mighty empire had been reduced to its home system, its vast fleets reduced to defensive forces barely sufficient to protect their core worlds. Some among our allies suggested we repay the Vraxians in kind. Chen acknowledged, looking directly at the insectoid delegates, that we should exterminate their species as they attempted to do to others. A murmur ran through the assembly. It was no secret that several of the former slave species had advocated for the complete destruction of Vraxian civilization. But that is not our way, Chen stated firmly. Humanity did not fight for vengeance or conquest. We fought for survival, and then for something greater, the right of all sentient beings to live free from tyranny. He gestured to the Vraxian delegates. Even former oppressors have a place in the new order, if they are willing to abide by its principles. The lead Vraxian delegate, an administrator named Vexful, stepped forward. The Vraxian people accept the terms of the Concordat, he said, his translated voice carrying a tone of humility alien to his species. We will submit to the agreed reparations and disarmament protocols. Chen nodded acknowledgement. Then let us begin the work of rebuilding. As delegates formalized the historic agreement, Chen stepped away from the podium and joined Reyes and Talis in the antechamber. Do you think it will last? Reyes asked quietly. Peace never seems to. Chen looked out the window at the earth below, pristine and blue. The wreckage of the original Nemesis had been placed in perpetual orbit as a memorial, visible as a small point of light reflecting the sun. It will require constant vigilance, he admitted. But for the first time in millennia, species across the galaxy are working together rather than subjugating or avoiding each other. Talis's large eyes studied him with that unnerving meridian intensity. You did not mention in your speech what truly made the difference, Captain. The element that made humans uniquely capable of defeating the Vraxians. Chen raised an eyebrow. And what was that? Your contradictions, she replied. No other species we have encountered combines such capacity for violence with such capacity for compassion, such individual ambition with such collective sacrifice, such technological innovation with such philosophical questioning. She gestured toward the assembly hall where the delegates were completing the historic accord. The galaxy shuddered when humanity's warship joined the conflict, Talis said. But the galaxy will be transformed now that humanity's conscience has joined the peace.